UHD quality video streaming, internet like a boss. SLT Mobitel Fiber. UHD quality video streaming, internet like a boss. SLT Mobitel Fiber.
Comfort Moodian Bagyai Kalak Pavatina Alut Penumai.
Tonight, the right move. After announcing a 50-point rate hike today, the central bank governor defends debt repayment.
Why is it that you are keen to inflict pain on your investors who have trusted you and come? Do you know what would have been the situation had we defaulted?
A long time coming. The EDB chairman says Sri Lanka is long overdue for a major attitudinal change.
People have a tendency to look at why they cannot do something, not why they can do something.
A step in the right direction. The president reaches out to UK's Lord Tariq Ahmed to set the ball rolling on diaspora engagement. Old friends. The foreign minister reiterates the need for continued Japanese support on the international stage.
Japan has played that role in being a bridge between Sri Lanka and other countries, in presenting and interpreting Sri Lanka's point of view to other countries.
All that and much more coming up on First at 9, this Thursday, the 20th of January 2022.
Nelly, Mataken, Gilihunu Black Shiny, Kes Kalamaka Rasa, Sunset, Black Shine Samagin.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening. Welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammika Ekanaik. The Monetary Board of the Central Bank today announced its first rate hike since the beginning of the pandemic. The raising of the standing deposit facility rate and standing lending facility rate by 50 basis points brings them to 5.5% and 6.5% respectively. At the media briefing held this morning, Central Bank Governor Ajit Nimad Cabral defended the central bank's recent $500 million bond settlement, explaining that it wouldn't have been financially prudent to let down international investors.
The Monetary Board of the Central Bank has decided to increase its standing deposit facility rate and standing lending facility rate by 50 basis points each. This brings the STFR to 5.5% and the SLFR to 6.5%. In addition, the board also announced a decision to share the financing of essential import bills for fuel purchases among licensed commercial banks in proportion to their foreign exchange inflows as well. Further, in a move to increase foreign exchange receipts, the central bank has also mandated all registered tourist establishments to only accept foreign currency payments for services rendered to non-residents of Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, explaining the central bank's rationale behind the policy rate increase, Director Economic Research Dr. Anil Peiris says that the move comes on the back of increased signs of economic recovery.
We observe as the central bank, economic activity is recording a gradual recovery. So some broad indicators suggest, for example, the purchasing managers index, the central bank, and some mobility indicators and some sentiment indices like LMD Nielsen index suggest that the economy is actually recovering. With this recovery in the economy, we expect that the economy would grow around 4% in 2021, and also continuing the growth momentum, we anticipate that the Sri Lankan economy will expand by a minimum of 5% in 2022.
In the meantime, Central Bank Governor Ajit Nimad Cabral responded to questions regarding the role of private banks in financing essential imports.
If you see one item for our policy measures, we have reached an agreement with the licensed commercial banks that they too would be bearing the financing and the arrangement of the financing of certain essential goods, so that essential goods are not only put as a burden to the state banks, so it will be in proportionate to the dollar earnings as well as the dollar incomes that they receive. We would be negotiating with them, and they'll be taking a part of those bills as well, so that there will be a greater stability in the overall external sector. It is necessary for us to ensure that the essential items are first imported, because last year we saw that $21.5 billion worth of items were imported. So that is a comfortable number to have accommodated the essentials. Before the essentials were met, non-essentials were also being imported. We don't want to see a situation where we have to struggle for essentials, but all the non-essentials are there. I don't think anyone of you would like to see that happening. First of all, we got to ensure that the essentials are also provided for.
With that, the central bank governor also responded to questions on the bank's decision to avoid defaulting on its $500 billion international sovereign bond repayment, explaining that the amount repaid was just a small percentage of Sri Lanka's $21 billion imports bill last year.
We have rolled out an IMF program because I think these programs that we have initiated would work. Even if the IMF comes, what is the different program that they would be able to prescribe other than to say restructure your debt? Why is it that you are keen to inflict pain on your investors who have trusted you and come? Do you know what would have been the situation had we defaulted, like what some people had proposed? Yesterday, we had a treasury bill auction at which 97 billion rupees was on auction and it was fully subscribed. If the day before we had defaulted, like as advised by some of these people, what would have been the state of that auction? What would have been the state of the ships that were coming? So you see, we have to understand, people can offer advice. They will say $500 million you must keep. $500 million out of a 21 billion of imports. What is the percentage? So would you rather sacrifice your entire economy than hold back 500 billion? So that's why those have been considered carefully and then the decisions taken.
Governor Cabral also rejected calls for an IMF facility, explaining that it could be termed unnecessary as measures outlined by the central bank were coming to fruition.
Most of the items that we have been talking about have been materializing. We talked about swaps, those are coming. We spoke about various country-to-country facilities. You have seen those announcements being made. That is why I think we are also conscious that there is a program that is being implemented, and we don't need to have 2-3 different types of programs coming and then confusion being caused.
An overall attitudinal change is what Chairman of the Export Development Board, Suresh Timel, calls for from the island's exporters and would-be entrepreneurs, as he spoke to Indiviri Ammuatta on our current affairs program at Hyde Park on AdaDerana 24 today. In his view, there isn't enough hype around the can-do attitude, and instead, people focus too much on what cannot be done.
We seem to be having obstacles in capturing larger markets. There seems to be challenges. Certain brands have made it big, but yet other brands seem to have challenges. When we talk about these sectors, tea, rubber, apparel, what's really the challenge that we face here?
We should be looking at high value markets and not larger markets. There's a big difference because a high value market is what's going to add value to our product. I mean, people are going to add value. The larger markets people will send as commodity. Now, if you analyze Sri Lanka's exports, we will find that a larger market gives you quick money and you can ship everything. You don't have to quality control as much as you do in a upmarket, high value added product. We need to get, like the agriculture department, the export agriculture department, all of us need to pull together to improve post-harvest technology mostly, because I think our product is grown, and if we go organic, which we are starting to do more and more, I think we have that brand. Now we need sort of microbiology controls, clean water use, better handling, better processing, storage, transport, all that. There is a lot of opportunity for investment, cold chains and dehydration and things like that. Now, that is how you add value. I prefer to look at the high value markets because Sri Lanka doesn't have unlimited supply like most countries do, even whether it's for production or raw material. Even in our tourism, we have to look at value per tourist rather than numbers of tourists. That's an attitude change that we all have to do, is that we are going for not the number market but the value market.
Do you think Sri Lanka is ready now to catch that next big wave of tourism arrivals?
Attitude-wise, no. Product-wise, yes. Because I think we need to again look at this high-value tourist, and we need to upgrade our product to meet that demand. And I believe promotion and marketing and all that is great, but maintaining the product and upgrading the product is more important at this point in time, because a bad message from a poorly managed tourism area will do more damage than the promotion can capture, because today everybody looks at a review, and some of those reviews stay stay there for years. Bad reviews, you know. Well, in a world like today where most customers go online to check, especially tourism, we have to keep having a good reputation being built.
The SME sector, especially exporters, the small exporters also, they've been hard hit. Is there anything happening through the EDB, or is the government doing enough to protect these SME players?
That's another $1 million question, because the SMEs don't seem to be reaching out either. Because I think that if an SME needs help, they need to come and share their issues in a way that it can be solved, not just ask for money. Even the banks are struggling to help SMEs because there isn't a good enough reason to give the SME a loan. So their financial literacy or their communication skills are quite poor. They are not a homogeneous group. You know, we have the informal SME, the partially formal SME, and then the Colombo SME or the empowered SME, right? Part of the challenge with SME is that we should not do sort of one-size-fits-all solutions. With the informal sector, it also upsets our data. We don't know whether they're actually in SME, or are they medium, are they large, are they small. So those are also complications. I think we need to empower the regional institutional or private sector institutional capacities to empower the SMEs in the regions, because that's where most of the SMEs are. Otherwise, they follow these informal methods of doing things, and they will lag behind because of that. As much as we need, you know, the big business needs to bend down, the small business also has to be taught to reach up. That's part of the problem. I think both sides there's a gap. People have a tendency to look at why they cannot do something, not why they can do something. So there are a lot of attitude issues in Sri Lanka to develop, especially with the SMEs. So we have to create a sort of a hype for this can-do mentality, you know.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has sought assistance from British Minister for South Asia, Lord Tariq Ahmed, to engage in discussions with the Sri Lankan diaspora in the UK. During his meeting with the head of state today, Lord Ahmed also praised Sri Lanka's progress in the development of human rights. British Minister for South Asia, Lord Tariq Ahmed of Wimbledon, who is in the island on a 3-day visit, called on President Gotabaya Rajapaksa today. During the meeting, Lord Ahmed praised the progress shown by Sri Lanka with regard to the human rights development and added that Sri Lanka will be able to move forward in this regard via a practical mechanism. Further, President Gotabaya requested support from Lord Ahmed to tackle the technical challenges on the renewable energy front and achieve its targets. In response, the British minister assured the President that relevant steps will be taken to provide necessary support to the country as soon as he gets back to the UK, concluding the visit. What's more, British Minister Lord Ahmed also noted that by making investments more conducive, investors can be attracted, adding that multi-ethnic communities in the UK are expecting to invest in Sri Lanka. Whilst noting that it is the aim of the government to resolve issues and create an environment where all can live as one community, the head of state requested Lord Ahmed to facilitate talks with the Sri Lankan diaspora in the UK, as the government is prepared to engage with them with understanding. Meanwhile, the newly renovated Sirimathipaya, the Prime Minister's office, was declared open today by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. The building was completely renovated for the first time since 1978, in line with a new plan according to a concept of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. The renovation work was undertaken by the Sri Lankan Navy. Further, a book depicting the history of Sirimathipaya was also handed over to the head of state by his newly appointed secretary, Gamini Senarath, during the ceremony. In the meantime, Foreign Minister Professor G.L. Peiris is hoping for Japanese support for Sri Lanka at various global fora. Addressing a joint media briefing yesterday to launch the celebration of the 70th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Sri Lanka and Japan, the minister also noted that Japan is a time-tested friend of Sri Lanka.
Conflict is a natural feature of human society. But whenever Japan gets involved in the business of resolving conflicts, in reconciliation, the Japanese approach has always been identifying common ground and broadening, expanding that area of convergence. It has never been naming and shaming. It has never been polarization. It has never involved talking down. And these are ingredients of the Japanese culture which we deeply appreciate. Japan is not a good weather friend. Japan is a tried and tested friend in all circumstances, easy as well as challenging.
Japan and Sri Lanka continue to stand by one another in time of need, while fostering mutual trust and respect through the course of our long history. I am determined to further strengthen our bond of friendship while expediting people-to-people exchange to explore our greater potentials that remain unleashed.
In the meantime, Foreign Minister Professor G.L. Peiris also expressed hope of garnering Japan's support at international fora.
We are also hoping to have Japanese assistance with regard to resolving some of Sri Lanka's issues in international fora. Japan has played that role already in being a bridge between Sri Lanka and other countries, a bridge in presenting and interpreting Sri Lanka's point of view to other countries. Japan is well qualified to do that because of the qualities of empathy, compassion, gentleness, and consensus building. Japanese culture is all about consensus building.
We will see you shortly on the other side of this break. Stay with us.
Big 3.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, the policy speech delivered by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa on Tuesday at the commencement of the second session of the 9th Parliament was debated for the second day today, with opposition members continuing to take aim at the President's speech, calling it ineffective. It was a day of tit-for-tat exchanges across both sides of the House.
Global economic prospects very clearly shows that there is inequality growing across the world. This is what the COVID has produced. මේ නිසා ලෝකය සමාජයන් තුළ හැම රටකම අත්ංගේ නැත්ංගේ ආදායම් පරතරය උග්‍ර වෙමින් පවතිනවා. ඒ අත්ංගේ නැත්ංගේ ආර්ථික පරතරය උග්‍ර වෙනකොට එයින් බැටවදින මූලික ප්‍රශ්න විසඳීමට රජයන් මැදිහත් වෙන්නට ඕනේ කියලා තමයි මේ ජාත්‍යන්තර නිර්දේශයන් කරන්නේ. මම විශේෂයෙන් සඳහන් කරන්න කැමතියි. Some of the key areas compounding this rising inequality, the world is undergoing a phase of exceptional uncertainty. Report calls to soften the increased global inequality. This report calls for a concerted effort to mobilize external resources, accelerated debt relief, මාර්ග අලුත් දොරටු අලුත් සංවර්ධන මාර්ග විවෘත කර යුතුයි මේ අනුව අපේ ආර්ථිකයේ අලුත් මාර්ග ඇති කරගන්න. එය ආරම්භ කර තිබෙන බව ගරු ජනාධිපතිතුමා ප්‍රකාශ කළා.
හැමෝම පිළිගන්නවා මේ වර්තමාන රජය නිර්මාණය වුණු ප්‍රධානතම පදනම ජාතික ආරක්ෂාව. අපි දකිනවා ජනාධිපතිතුමාගේ ප්‍රකාශයේත් එතුමා කියනවා අපේ රජය ජාතික ආරක්ෂාව සුරක්ෂිත කොට තිබෙනවා. අපි පුළුල් ආකාරයෙන් බැලුවොත් ජාතික ආරක්ෂාවට මිලිටරි ආරක්ෂාව වැදගත්, ආර්ථික ආරක්ෂාව වැදගත්, ජීවනෝපාය ආරක්ෂාව වැදගත්, සෞඛ්‍ය ආරක්ෂාව වැදගත්, කෘෂිකාර්මික ආරක්ෂාව වැදගත්, අධ්‍යාපන ආරක්ෂාව වැදගත්, ආහාර සුරක්ෂිත භාවය වැදගත්, බලශක්තිය ආරක්ෂාව වැදගත්, ඒ වගේම දේශපාලන ආරක්ෂාව වැදගත්. මම බොහොම පැහැදිලිව මේ අවස්ථාවේ කියන්න කැමතියි මේ හැම කොටසකින්ම මේ රජය අසාර්ථකයි. කෙටියෙන් කියනවා නම් ජනාධිපතිවරයා ප්‍රමුඛ රජය සහ මුලින්ම ෆේල්.
ආණ්ඩුව අපේ රටේ ණය ශ්‍රේණිගතව කිරීම වලින් පහළට ඇද දාලා රට අර්බුදයක හෙළුවා කියලා විපක්ෂ නායකතුමා චෝදනා කළා. නමුත් මම පරීක්ෂා කරලා බැලුවා මේ කතාවේ ඇත්ත නැත්ත. ප්‍රධාන ශ්‍රේණිගත කිරීම ආයතන 3යි. මූඩි B1 සිට B2 දක්වා අපේ ශ්‍රේණිගත කිරීම පහළට දාන්නේ 2018 දෙසැම්බර් මාසයේ. ඊළඟට ෆිච් රේටින් BB- ඉනම් B+ දක්වා ශ්‍රී ලංකාව පහළට දාන්නේ 2016 වසරේ තුන්වෙනි ප්‍රධාන ආයතනය ස්ටෑන්ඩඩ් ඇන්ඩ් පුවර්ස්. ඒ අයගේ ශ්‍රේණිගත කිරීම වල ශ්‍රී ලංකාව B+ සිට B දක්වා පහතට දාන්නේ 2018 දෙසැම්බර් මාසයේ. එහෙනම් මේ ශ්‍රේණිගත කිරීම පල්ලම් බැසීම කොරෝනා නොතිබුණු විපක්ෂයේ විසින් මේ රට පාලනය කළ යුගයේදී සිදු වුණා කියන එක අපි සිහිපත් කරන්න ඕනි.
Now, in other local stories, the decision of the Colombo High Court trial at bar on whether to release former IGP Pujit Jayasundara or call a plea will be delivered on the 18th of next month. This was announced when the relevant case was taken up today. The case filed against former IGP Pujit Jayasundara over the failure to prevent the Easter Sunday terror attacks, despite there being intelligence warning of a pending attack, was taken up today before the Colombo High Court trial at bar. During the proceedings, the post-mortem reports of those who were killed during the attacks were marked by the court registrar. Deputy Solicitor General Peiris told the court that the complaint concludes leading evidence. The three-member bench then noted that the decision on whether to release the respondent and whether to call a plea will be delivered on the 18th of February. Evidence from 4 witnesses, including former head of the State Intelligence Service Nilantha Jayawardena and IGP C.D. Vikramaratne, as well as 759 documents had been submitted as evidence pertaining to the case. Meanwhile, the Attorney General has decided not to object to a possible bail request when remanded lawyer Hijaz Hizbullah's case will be taken up on the 28th before the Puttlam High Court. The Attorney General's department made the observation when a revision petition pertaining to the suspect was taken up before the Court of Appeal today. In a separate case, the Colombo Additional Magistrate Chandima Liyanage yesterday ordered to remand 10 women who had received weapons training under the Katuapita church attacker Mohammed Hastun's wife Pulastini Mahendran, also known as Sarah Jasmine, until the Attorney General's advice is received. The 10 suspects were produced before court by the Terrorist Investigation Division under the Prevention of Terrorism Act. The TID told the court that investigations have identified 25 suspects who took oath after participating in extremist lectures and weapons training. It added that apart from the 10 suspects produced before court, the rest of the 15 suspects are either missing or dead. Now, a long-held dream of our late colleague, AdaDerana assistant cameraman Tarupatis Dream, who lost his life in a vehicle accident in March last year, was finally realized today. His dream of building a home for his family came true as the keys to the new home were handed over to Tarupatis' parents and brother.
On the 4th of March last year, the AdaDerana family lost one of its own. A vehicle with 5 AdaDerana staff members heading to Kandy skidded off the road and collided with a tree in the area of Mawatagama in Kurunegala. Assistant cameraman Tarupatis Dream did not survive the crash. He was only 24 at the time. During his time at AdaDerana, he made no secret of his ambition to build a house for his ailing parents and younger brother. Though he is no longer with us, his dream, however, was realized today. A new house constructed in the area of Veauda by AdaDerana was handed over to the family of the late Tarupati today. Tarupati may have left the mortal realm, but he lives on in our hearts forever.
Welcome back to First at 9. Now, taking a look at the Colombo bourse, Sri Lankan shares closed lower today, weighed down by losses in industrial and financial stocks after an increase in interest rates by the central bank to control inflation failed to lift investor sentiment. The CSE All Share Price Index ended 0.75% lower at 13,361.17, snapping a 4-day win streak, while the S&P SL 20 index of more liquid stocks also dipped by 0.29%. to close at 4,604.80 points. With that, now here's a detailed report on today's trading.
Today, the market ended in the red zone while ASPI lost 101 points and closed at 13,361, and S&P SL 20 also lost 14 points at the end of the session, despite recording a 7.1 billion turnover, which has improved compared to yesterday. Looking at the index, today's session displayed major volatility throughout the session, while in the beginning, index continued to follow the bull run but failed to hold on to it. Afterwards, investors started to infuse selling pressure following the announcement of central bank tightening its monetary policy. Transportation sector counter and diversified financial sector counters were largely contributed for the drop in today's market. Number of trades also slightly improved to 47,400 compared to yesterday.
Now then, in the currency market, the Sri Lankan rupee maintained its rate of 202.99 cents against the US dollar today as well. Now let's take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee fared against other major currencies during the day. And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.